Everyone, I'm Levi with SaratogaWine.com, and I'm here with the sake sommelier, Brian Booth, and we're just kind of going to discuss a little bit about what sake is and kind of the main difference you'll see through it. So I'll leave it to professional. Can you talk a little bit about what is trending, what is sake, what do people care about with sake?
Wow, that's a lot in one question. Alrighty, let's jump right in. First of all, I like to say that sake is its own unique spirit. Some folks refer to it as a white wine. That's a bit of a misnomer. It's its own spirit. It's production-wise, it's very similar to beer, and so much so that it's made in a sake brewery. Sake's flavor profiles run a gamut from pick any type of fruit flavor, stone fruit, tropical fruit, berries, you name it. Aromatics are floral, but also on the counter side of that, you get a lot of earthy notes. Think umami driven, mushroom, toasted rice, very earthy notes also. So there's something in sake for everyone.
So playing that way, big thing is we've tried through a lot of sakes today, highlighted a few here. The big question that came up when we're talking about sake is pairings. Is there anything you wouldn't pair with sake, or is there something that's perfect to pair with sake?
Oh, that's a perfect question. My personal philosophy, and I base that on a saying in Japanese that translates to English that says, sake never fights with food. Historically, sake always started as to support food, meaning it wasn't a standalone beverage that it's aspired to today. So with that as a foundation, I say it doesn't fight with food. And I've taken that a step further to say, my mission is to pair sake with every cuisine on every continent, and I'm up for that challenge. The first one up that we have is Yamagata Masamune Inazo Junmai Ginjo. This is from Yamagata Prefecture in northern Japan. This Junmai Ginjo is made with a rice variety called Dewa Sansan. This brewery is known for making their style of sake using hard water. Most sake brewers use a soft water, but this one chose to do a hard water. And what it does is it gives it a nice, clean, sharp edge on the finish of it, hence the name Masamune. If you know anything about Japanese history, Date Masamune was famous and he wielded a very sharp sword, Masamune, and so the brewery wanted to incorporate that into defining the finish for their sake. Next up, we have Kozaemon Miyama 55 Junmai Ginjo. Kozaemon Brewery is in Gifu Prefecture. It's in north central Japan. Miyama is the name of the rice variety for this one, and the 55 refers to the rice polishing for this one. This Junmai Ginjo is a really nice indicator of the flavor profile from the rice used, Miyama, and it's a really fun and very versatile pairing sake. Last but not least, we have Kozaemon Junmai Umeshu. Technically, it's made with 100% Junmai sake, but it's classified as an Umeshu. If you're unfamiliar with Umeshu, Umeshu is a plum wine that utilizes green unripe plums and additional sugar in the form of rock sugar to make the plum wine itself. Okay. What I like about this one is twofold. Number one is they reduce the ratio of sugar content, and what that does is it dials back the sweetness coefficient and really lets this umeshu shine with a tart and refreshing crisp profile. The second part, and I don't know if you can see it from the bottle, is it has a really beautiful kind of rosé tint to it. This is from the actual plums themselves. Like I said earlier, the typical plum that they use for umeshu is an unripe, fully green. Instead, they opted to have these plums ripen on the branch to a minimum of 50% red skin color. What that allowed them to do is when they incorporate that with the rock sugar and the junmai, that color is pulled and generates this beautiful color of this umeshu.
So we already have in our glass the Azuno. So for me, I get this very kind of sweet up front, almost a peary, peachy kind of note with almost a kind of tartness on the nose. And then on the palate, it kind of plays along with that sweetness, but then still moves into this almost savory, almost minerality, almost kind of salty kind of closure on it. Would that be an accurate kind of depiction of that, or is there something that you get more from that that stands out as a profile?
I approve that assessment 100%. I think he's spot on. It's clear that you get the nice, fruit notes up front. You get that nice kind of briny, almost salinity to it, and that kind of really dives right into that, again, Yamagata Masamune style of finish, which has a bit of an edge to it. But yeah, it takes your palate on a beautiful taste experience from beginning to end.
Would you consider this as more like an aperitif sake, or would this be more of you'd show this with a type of cuisine?
I would say, number one, sake never fights with food, so it's definitely compare with food. But this sake that we're enjoying now in this time is very much able to stand on its own and be enjoyed by itself as an aperitif or as an individual beverage. So again, very versatile, very fun to drink. So again, this is Kozaemon Miyama 55 Junmai Ginjo.
So for me on this one, I'm playing much more cream texture, much more banana, which I find kind of stylistically similar through a lot of different sakes, which I absolutely adore. But this plays much more like a ripe banana with creams, and you still get this almost savory, herby, almost, if you would go, fennel, kind of a almost candied root beer kind of note to it too. And then on the palate, it kind of follows through to the similar kind of like rock candy that we talked about with that, but almost like a flavored rock candy if you would be a banana, tropical, peach kind of thing. I'm gonna go back into it again. I think this is beautiful.
I would say pretty good. I think you really struck a nerve with me with the root beer candy. It reminds me of the candies, the little barrel-shaped guys.
Totally the barrels there. And
I do get that hint toward the end, just before the finish. And wow, I never thought about that before. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. But definitely, it's at the beginning, it's a creamy banana note, which is beautiful. But it is one of the flavor profiles that is consistent through sake as well. But again, you really get that nice herbal finish. And yeah, I would say there's a measure of fennel on there, which makes it really fun. And again, those components lend themselves beautifully to pairing with food.
Yeah, I think very stylistically, these two approach completely different. This one plays more of that herby kind of rooty structure, where this plays more into a fruit kind of structure. So for me, this could almost play into dessert, where this one could be more of a main course. But then really, to say that's dessert doesn't speak anything about this one.
Yeah, so stay tuned for that one. Fun. But yeah, I would agree definitely. This one is the character is a little bit more fruit forward, for sure, and that lends itself good to either augmenting a dish or kind of tamping down a little bit of spice that you might have in some of your dishes as well, and giving extra layers to it. Whereas this one, yeah, it's really gonna push a lot of your vegetable dishes to new levels of flavor and things like that. So absolutely. So it's customary in Japan to always pour yourself last, and you're doing a fine job of it. So thank you very much. So this one again is the Kozaemon Junmai Umeshu. And again, the aroma on this one really jumps off the glass. It's a beautiful plum note for all you plum fans out there.
So for this one, it immediately sticks out to honey sticks that you use when you stir in your tea. Growing up, visiting the draperies, being handed a honey stick to suck on the fun flavors. That little spark of sweetness there you get, but then it's followed up by that really nice tart acidity that comes from only like a ripe style fruit you would get, which would be the plums for me. It doesn't overpower with the alcohol or anything like that. It really kind of balances itself out to not be astringent or overly sweet in any way. It just kind of closes out beautifully.
Yeah, I would say, having tried several umeshu, umeshu tends to be very rich and sweet up front. This one, like I mentioned, they reduce the percentage of sugar pretty much. And so what it did was really balance it out, in my opinion, to really allow that tartness to come through, to really finish with a very refreshing note to it, which makes it much more fun and enjoyable.
Yeah, I find this to be desserty without being overburdening with the sweetness, which I think is, for me with my kind of desserts, if I'm going to do a piece of pie or something, or even I would say this would play with ice cream, but it had to be the right kind of ice cream. It'd be better with like a sorbet kind of play, or even a just a type of light pastry. And I think you could have a buttered croissant with this, and it would turn itself into a dessert because that little sweet tartness in it would play out beautifully.
I would say on the sorbet, it would knock it out of the park. It gives it much more structure, much more complexity, makes it a much more beautiful finish to a wonderful meal. The croissant, that would be interesting. I'd be curious to have it nice and warm and maybe dip it in and try
So
it
I think
that way.
that butteriness, the fatness, kind of playing with the acidity there. Like you would play with like the wine world, acid and fat would be a fun combination.
Oh, I have to try that sometime. Thank you for the recommendation.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you again for joining us, showing off some beautiful sakes today.
I want everyone to enjoy sake. And when you do have sake, and you go to cheers with whoever you're enjoying it with, in Japan we say Kanpai. Kanpai.